Have you ever wondered how I did this? Or this? Or maybe you're curious as to how I did this. Hi, I'm Grace, and I am done gatekeeping my YouTube secrets. Here is how I edit my videos and how I went from this to this in less than 6 months. But before we jump into my editing process, let's talk about branding first. As an advertising and public relations major myself, I cannot stress enough the importance of establishing your personal branding. It is one thing to have aesthetically pleasing content, but if your work does not stand out in this highly saturated field, the truth of the matter is that you will not flourish in content creation. Of course, when you're a new YouTuber, it might be quite hard to establish your personal branding, and that is completely okay. That is why I would suggest number 1, practicing, and number 2, consuming media with a critical eye. When you're starting out here on YouTube, it is more important to aim for quantity over quality. That is because it is more important for you to practice your skill set in video editing and videography. Because honestly, you can't expect yourself to have a 24-level cinematography if you upload once a year due to your perfectionism. Yes, that is a personal call out to my past self. That is not to say that you should upload objectively bad content on purpose. In every video that you make, try your best to improve your skills. And in every video that you upload, try to experiment with different editing styles and see what resonates with you the most. You do not have to follow the crowd or copy the pre-established vernaculars of your niche. Rather, set these standards yourself by exploring what makes your content you. My other point is to consume media with a critical eye. I personally love watching YouTube. I've been a viewer since like 2013. Shout out to my Dan and Phil stands out there. But ever since I decided to pursue content creation, I've been consuming media with a more critical eye. So whenever you watch your favorite content creators, ask yourself, what do I like about this person's content? Is it the warm color grading in their videos? Is it the music that they use? And if you see a video that you dislike, also ask yourself what puts you off from this type of content. With this information, you can further refine your personal branding. Here are some examples of branding notes I took from my favorite YouTubers. So take the tidbits that you have picked up from your favorite content creators and transform it into something that is your own. I cannot stress this enough. Do not blatantly copy them, but use their work as a stepping stone towards finding your own flair. So for me personally, it took me quite a while to establish my personal branding. You guys can disagree with me in the comments, but I think that my personal branding consists of my film-like intros, the warm white and muted yellows throughout my videos, and the very serene and melancholic instrumentals that I use. So now I will be discussing how exactly I found my personal branding by showing you my editing process, the fonts I use, how I color grade, and how I find music. Now let's move on to my editing process. I have tried a plethora of video editing software in the past. I've tried Premiere Pro, I've used Final Cut Pro, I even tried using iMovie and Vegas Pro back in like 2015. But I find that a lot of the software I've used is quite difficult to navigate, especially if you're a beginner. So when I discovered Wondershare Filmora and tried it out for a week, I was actually very surprised. This video is sponsored by Filmora, but I swear I wish I discovered the software when I started my video editing journey, and I would genuinely recommend this to people who want to start their YouTube career. Either way, all of my tips are applicable whichever software you use, but I do highly suggest that you guys check out Filmora. If you have not heard of Wondershare Filmora, it is an easy-to-use video editing software with powerful functions. Anyone and everyone can start with Filmora easily and quickly, even with zero editing skills. But if you are a veteran video editor, this software could also work for you since it has a lot of powerful features. So here's my general process for editing a video. First, I do a rough cut, then I look for music, then I make my intro, Then I refine the rough cut while adding subtitles and title plates. Then I finish by adding sound effects and handwritten text. First up is the rough cut. My footage typically consists of almost 2 hours worth of content, so I do this rough cut to reduce my video to just 10 to 20 minutes. This is the most monotonous part of the editing process because you'll literally just be sitting for hours cutting and deleting footage, but when doing this I like to listen to music or watch a show. The rough cut is essential because if your video's pacing is slow, your viewers will have the tendency to click out of your video, and this will greatly affect your watch time and CTR or click-through rate. So when doing the rough cut, I make sure that I don't linger on a certain video or topic for too long. So here you can see that I am doing the rough cut on Wondershare Filmora. What I like about Filmora compared to other editing software is that this splicing tool is conveniently placed. So all I have to do is click the scissors icon whenever I want to cut footage. If you are a Final Cut Pro user, you may also be familiar with the blade tool. So Filmora will be launching a new feature called Quick Split Mode so that you can cut your footage smoothly. I personally believe that the intro is the most important part of every YouTube video. In the intro, you typically add the highlights of your footage to give the viewers a glimpse of what to expect. My general rule of thumb is, if the first 10 seconds of my video doesn't immediately pique the interest of my viewers, then my video is probably boring, and that is the harsh reality. That is why I want to stress the importance of having a hook. It could be an interesting way of editing, it could be a joke, it could even be a question. Whatever your hook may be, make sure that it'll make your viewers want to stay. So after I finish the rough cut, I just copy and paste all of my favorite clips to the start of the timeline. Then I try to conceptualize my theme for the video. So to make this intro, I just made this overlay. You can use Photoshop or any photo editor of your choice, and then I added it as an overlay to my timeline. I also like looking for 35mm-esque overlays on YouTube. I just download it and add it as an overlay to my timeline as well. Wondershare Filmora also has a lot of intro templates that you could use. I personally like using the film overlays. I think that they are way better than the ones I find on YouTube, honestly. So I feel like I'll be using these ones from now on. Alright, fine, I'll tell you what fonts I use. These are the fonts that I use. Alright, moving on to the next portion. I'm kidding. If you are a creative, you would know how important fonts are to us. I treat fonts like a mother who thinks that their child is their ticket out of poverty. That is how important they are to me. That's why I tried my best to gatekeep the fonts that I use, but you know what? Sharing is caring, so flashed on the screen right now are the fonts that I usually use. For subtitles, I use Helvetica Neue and Futura, and for the titles, I use these fonts to name a few. An important thing to note is that I choose fonts depending on the vibe I want the video to emanate. So for example, in these two videos, I wanted it to look like a film reel, so I used these two fonts. And in another video, the theme was a digital music player, so I used a very analog font. Continuing on that same topic, choose music that goes well with the theme of your videos. I have 3 main ways of finding music. My favorite way is by using Bandcamp, which is a music distributor that houses a lot of independent artists. This is where I get most of my music, especially in my recent videos. My favorite artist is Louis Zong, and you might find his music familiar if you've been watching me for a while. If you don't want to pay, you can also use Thematic. Thematic has a lot of music options, although I find their search engine to be quite difficult to navigate, so you really have to scroll whenever you're looking for the perfect music to use. I try to steer away from Thematic because I noticed that a lot of study tubers get the same music from here, so I use Bandcamp instead just to try and set myself apart, I guess. Also, I find that I prefer slow instrumentals over the lo-fi tracks typically on the Thematic website, but that is entirely up to your personal taste. My last suggestion is to just literally search on YouTube. I wouldn't recommend this because you do run the risk of getting copyrighted, but as long as you're careful, there are a lot of hidden gems on YouTube. For sound effects, I'm not as picky. I just use a mouse click sound effect and a digital camera sound effect whenever I want people to pay attention. To make the editing process easier, Filmora has a ton of audio effects to choose from, so if you want to save yourself the time, Filmora has a lot of great music options. So after I find good music, I import it onto Filmora and start editing. Once I've added the music, I'll try to trim the clips again in case I missed any boring segments. And in this stage of the editing process, I also adjust the volume of my clips and the background music. Filmora has a very handy feature called Auto Beat Sync, which allows you to match your footage with your chosen music. Doing this manually is a very tedious process, so I'm glad that Filmora has an option like this. And it'll make your videos very fun to watch, like this. Filmora has an ongoing music video making campaign if you guys are interested. So whatever your July plans may be, whether it be going out with friends, going to summer classes, or traveling the world, add some background music to spice up your summer soundtrack. If you guys are interested in making a music video of your summer, I will add the link to the campaign down below. To be honest, I barely color grade my videos. I personally just like lowering the highlights, increasing the shadows, and lowering the brightness a bit to make the footage look more muted and pastel. I also increase the saturation a bit, just be sure to have a light hand when doing this when you're color grading footage of people, just so they don't turn into an orange. If you're too lazy to color grade, Wondershare Filmora also has a lot of cute filters and LUTs to choose from. My personal favorites are these ones from the anime section, as well as these ones from the cinematic section. Filmora also has this color match tool, which allows you to unify your footage into one cohesive color. This is helpful, especially if you want your video to emanate a certain vibe, and it definitely makes the color grading process so much easier. The final stage of my editing process is to add title plates and subtitles. Since I usually don't talk in my videos, subtitles are essential. As I mentioned earlier, I usually use Helvetica Neue and Futura. Filmora has a very cool feature that I discovered recently, which is the speech-to-text function. It allows you to transcribe voice into subtitles seamlessly. This would be very useful for vlogs or sit-down and chat videos, and I honestly wish I discovered this before I filmed my Notion tour, because that would have saved me like an hour of subtitling manually. Lastly, to add more spice to my videos, I also add handwritten text and doodles. For this animated look, I actually learned how to do this back in 2017 thanks to Nadine Felice's video, so I'll link her video in the cards if you want a more comprehensive guide. But essentially, I use this app on my iPad called Autodesk Sketchbook. Then I write the text I want to animate. Then I create a new layer and trace over the text. Then I remove the background, hide one of the layers, and airdrop each layer to my laptop. Then I import it onto Filmora and alternate it a few times to make it look like it's animated. For the handwritten text on this video, I use Autodesk Sketchbook as well. I just screen record on my iPad right under a black background and airdrop the screen recording onto my laptop. Then I could just import the video and make it an overlay. And that brings me to the end of my editing process. What next, you may ask? You start all over again. Video editing is no easy task. I've been a videographer and video editor since 2015, which was over 5 years ago, and I'm still far away from being a quote-unquote good video editor. So don't expect yourself to be a pro overnight. Just keep practicing your skill set, analyzing the media you consume, and creating high-quality content. I hope you guys found this video insightful and value-adding, and I'll see you guys next week.